first. Give us about 30 seconds.
Should everybody else mute themselves while one person is reading so dogs
I
bark
think
and all that kind of stuff doesn't interfere?
Yeah, I think that will give much better sound quality if we do that.
Yeah.
I downloaded this.
You
Okay,
don't
let's
need to-
all mute ourselves now then.
Oh,
Okay.
you are Victor.
So are you here? Can you see yourself? I can't see.
Yes.
Okay. So here's the
Okay,
list.
all right.
And Richard is first, and he knows he's first.
Okay.
Are we ready?
You can begin, Richard, any minute
Any minute or now?
Oh,
now.
wait
All
until
right,
Greg gets back.
Thank you, Miriam. Here I am.
all right. Okay, fine. So I'm Richard Wells. I'm currently in Seattle, Washington. My wife and I have been visiting Guanajuato for the past 3 years. Our last stay was this year. We stayed 3 months, but then our visas ran out at the same time a pandemic hit the world, and we decided, the visa people told us with a wink and a nod to just disregard the dates on the visa. But we decided that here in Seattle, we're 10 minutes from Pill Hill, the location of all of our hospitals, whereas in Guanajuato, we felt a little bit at sea. So we came home and now we can't get out. So that's the way life
Right.
is. And so we have all been encouraged not to spend Thanksgiving with friends and family. And so with that in mind, whoops, what happened?
Nothing.
I'm gone. There I am.
You're still here.
Okay.
We see
So
you.
with that in mind, I wrote a trio of poems for Thanksgiving, and then I'll read a second poem, which is about one of my favorite subjects, dogs in heaven. But we'll start with the Thanksgiving poems. Okay. This is a trio. Number one, before Thanksgiving. This year, when we set the table, we'll use the extension for just 2 of us. When I make the greeting and say the prayer, this 2 of us will offer love to the many of us who will be thinking of us and their own. And as the circle goes round and round, it will expand. And not only she or he, but all of us will hold the whole world in our hands. I realize gratitude is only fitting response. And my mantra becomes thank you, thanks, and thanks again. I bow my head as I recall all the missed opportunities for that simple prayer. And I'm a little sad as a breeze swirls red and gold leaves just ahead of my steps, and a crow flits up and down the street, dropping and retrieving a piece of yellow plastic. Oh, for this and all things, even the sadness, thanks. And thanks again. Breathe. Take this heart. Take this heart, beating the rhythm that guides the rest of me. Take this breath, the bridge to all that is. Take these eyes, soaked in so many colors. Take these lips kissed by lovers, and these fingers electrified by touch. Take these thoughts faster than light. Take this sadness, this joy, this anger and pain, this hope. take this reckless prayer. Take me standing before you. Take me, please, and fill me up. And that's the end of the trio.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
So Lee is next.
I have
think you
one
have
more.
another
Do
one.
I get to do the
Oh,
second
you're
one?
not done yet? Okay, sorry.
No, just a moment. This is called The Comings and Goings of All the Gods' Dogs. The heavenly throne is occupied by a well-fed and fluffed wolf and bitch coyote. Jackals and hyenas prance about on their hind legs to a frequency only they can hear, much to the tail-wagging amusement of the royals. While dogs, all manner and breeds of dogs, run around looking busier than they are, sniffing up each other's behinds, barking for no good reason, chowing down on the most awful scraps, fornicating to their heart's content, or sleeping. Now and then, the population culls itself and drops out of heaven into the lives of some poor, dumb humans who think they have found a perfect and plaything pet, but who have adopted either a freeloader or a work for pay and praise obsessive. Some dogs, sad but true, drop miserable, sad and bad, and lead hard lives, passing through all this earth's hells until their blessed and unmourned end. Weep for them, love them all. When humans say all dogs go to heaven, they don't know what they're talking about. But they're right. See above. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you, Richard.
Okay.
Uh, Okay.
Okay, I'm Lee Gould. I've been living here for about 4 years. I'm in Guanajuato. I'm the editor of La Presa, and I'd like to show you the cover of our latest issue, which went online. I bet you could guess when. It was right before Halloween and right before Day of the Dead. It is not yet in bookstores. It too is published by Embajador Press. And La Presa is finishing up. We are finishing up our 4th year in business. Our next issue will be our 5th, entering our 5th year. So I'm very pleased with all that's happened. We're completely bilingual now. Everything translated. Okay, and now I'll be Lee, just plain Lee. I haven't been writing for a long time. What I had been writing were sketches for my Spanish teacher, showing that I knew the conjugations of irregular verbs and that I could practice my vocabulary. And that was so much fun that I decided, why can't poetry be fun? So this is the first poem I've written in a long time, and was play for me, or at least it was much more fun than I thought I could have. This poem is called Marooned. Marooned like monsoon, the rains that pass over or overwhelm, or my more modest purple, tinged with rust, and you, for instance, stuck on a waterlogged island, textured with rough plank pathways over what once might have been the soccer field, tomorrow perhaps uninterrupted sea, but now mud and squalid, sun-hungry, that other kind of dirt, silt, clay, sludge, soil. No, what is that word for the near human malevolence that will suck you foot first like an earthen boa constrictor, swallow you, no one to fathom, no matter how deeply thought or searched for, how you disappeared. Neither a buckle nor earring beckons, but perhaps a crocodile, nostrils flared in the now adrenaline-rich air, grins and begins to glide. Then, with a noisy jaw smack, clamps you, closes its eyes in lavish anticipation. I now lost my place. But had it not been for a schoolmate, expert in the intricacies of Hapkido, needy of a math whiz seatmate who taught you all he knew, so, freeing one lightly tanned arm with a wrist flick and shoulder fling, you dug your fingers in, clung to the animal's scoots, heaved your body backwards, surprising the brute whose toothy snout opens, releasing you into the bushy glade along the bank of word retrieval, nemesis of the aged. But wait, the longed for begins with an M. No, a Q. Quicksand. Yes, quicksand. Now, the enormous beast, half submerged, sinks into the burbling morass, which easily accomplished what it had failed. You watch, not unsympathetic. 1, 2, 3, it disappears, leaves you rosy with triumph, vigorously bounding toward what appears to be glistening needles, darning a blurry sea where a trolling fisherman with a yen for a muddy nerd offers you the joy of elsewhere. So that's the poem. I really did have a pretty good time. And when I thought about this poem more, I thought, wait a minute, I don't write about other people. I only write about myself. That's what I do. I don't write about people marooned on islands, getting rescued and tossing over crocodiles like they're in some Florida arena. So I looked at the poem again, and I pulled out the other poem that is hiding there, and that has to do with my usual topic, Lee. And I want to read that short poem to you right now. Marooned. Like monsoon, the rains that pass over or overwhelm, or my more modest purple tinged with rust over what once might have been, oh, that other kind of dirt, silt, clay, sludge, soil, no, what is the word that will suck you, no matter how deeply thought? You disappeared into the now. With a noisy jaw smack, you dug your fingers in, heaved your body backwards. Word retrieval, nemesis of the aged. But wait, the longed for begins with an M, no a Q. Quicksand, yes, quicksand. Accomplished. 1, 2, 3 leaves you, bounding toward what appears to be a blurry sea, tinged with rust. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay.
Done.
Wonderful. Can we ever identify with that word retrieval stuff? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
only one sign of the happy aging of some of us.
Yeah.
Don't you have a third one that's a haiku?
I'll bring it next month. Oh, it's also all one sentence. That was the challenge, to do it all in one sentence.
Well, tell us, Ken, who's next?
Miriam. Miriam, you're up next.
Okay, I'm here.
Okay,
Um,
good.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I have one short piece that I've been working on. It's part of a memoir, but it's called Mexico City Lights. Next to me is an old photograph of a child standing in front of a wall with a crack. Her face is in shadow. Her hair is parted on one side, bows fixed behind. I want to say something kind to her about the flowered pinafore she wears, but she is frowning at me, uncertain about having her picture taken. She is a pretty child, although she refuses compliments. There is a bit of a frown on her face. She has come a long way to stand in that garden. It all happened at once. First, there was goodbye, her grandmother sobbing, everyone crowding around the yellow cab door, her mother in a hat with a veil, kissing everyone, or so it seemed. Her father leaning on the cab door in front, smiling, eager to be away. Her sister sitting next to her, pushing her into a corner and holding a handkerchief. Only 5 years and we'll be back, her mother repeated. Just to get some money saved, her father assured his weeping mother, while his father watched, shaking everyone's hand. Then they were off, driving into Manhattan traffic, on their way to the airport. Most of the time, they were in the air. She threw up in white plastic bags. The propellers droned on and on until it was dark, and the plane landed in New Orleans to refuel. She remembers the river, so wide, there was no other side nearby. She ducked into the water in her underpants the next morning. Back on the plane, the ups and downs began again. She had a window seat where the sun moved steadily behind them. She slept, woke again, the engines humming, small green and red lights budding in the wall. When she moved over close to the edge of her seat, the sky was black as far as she could see, a tunnel it seemed. Suddenly, there were lights strewn across the land below, more lights than she had ever seen before. And the plane kept moving over them. More and more lights appeared, spreading out, some higher, some higher than others, some large and bright, others blinking or flashing in the dark. There was no end to them, no beginning or ending. They spread wide across the window, filling the oval shape with bright design. There it is, her father called across the aisle. The city, Mexico City. She had never seen so many clusters of bright in the dark. She had never dreamed of lights rushing over the mountains into the valley, bunched together in lines, paralleling each other, and then moving lights. The plane plowed down, and there began to be buildings and streets and cars and buses and trucks, then tiny people. The wings tipped, the plane circled. She was seeing for the first time a shattering, sparkling city of lights. The enclosure was not big enough for all their suitcases. The big leather cases moved slowly through the hole in the wall. Two light bulbs illuminated the bare interior. It was hot. The men on the other side of the moving belts were dressed in brown uniforms. They spoke only to her father. The three females stood together, waiting for questions to answer, watching the men stamping the pamphlets with their photographs. Then she was asleep, traveling over the lights again, dreaming in amazement. That's it.
Thank you, Miriam.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
So we have Luisa.
Louisa Rogers, but maybe she's not here. She said she would be.
I'll let you know, Luisa. Well,
Just go on at the moment. Then,
okay. Kay Curtis.
Yes,
Oh, good.
I had a rather long spell of not writing very much at all, but recently I have been working on a memoir in tiny short vignettes. And this one is called Cycle of Giving. It was a sweater kit that Jean gave me when she was moving and trying valiantly to reduce her stash. I had it in my stash for several years and realized that I would never knit it. I gave it to Beverly, a new friend who also was a knitter and who was gathering yarn for a church rummage sale. I forgot about it, and some months later, when Beverly and I got together for lunch, she had a large shoulder bag bursting at the seams. After we had ordered, she opened the bag and pulled out this amazing sweater with my initials embroidered on the right shoulder. She said, "I didn't donate that sweater kit. I made it up for you." I almost cried with gratitude. When I showed it to Jean on our next ski trip, she did cry, and we both cried together with gratitude and amazement at the cycle of giving. And
Thank you.
Nothing else?
what? Lovely. Thank you. That
Thank
was
you.
that was the end of that particular vignette.
It's very nice, yeah.
You have another?
No, I don't have anything else.
Okay, all right. So Manuela is next. Good to see you, Kay.
Thank you. It's very, very good to see all of you. I can't tell you how good it is or how lonely I am here in San Diego.
Manuela. Oh my gosh.
Okay. You know, I've been writing some poetry, but all this lockdown has given me lots of time for personal reflection. So this is a personal little essay, maybe a prelude to something else, I'm not sure. Kurz gesagt, which is German for in a nutshell, more or less. We were in high school when a classmate, one of the boys I considered sophisticated, asked whether or not I preferred to be the spooner or the spoonee when sleeping with a lover. Being of the generation spawned by my mother's generation, but wanting to sound experienced as my classmate undoubtedly was, I answered that, of course, I preferred the rule of the spoonee, which sounded more appropriately feminine. After a calamitous and very unsophisticated marriage in my teens, with medical consequences that radically altered my life by making it impossible for me to have children, I dropped out of high school for good and moved to Venice, the Southern California version of Haight-Ashbury at the time. That clause in my life looked for complete sentences in the caverns of dark paragraphs that were mostly indiscernible at the head of a syringe. County records of my exploits in search of usable nouns attest to my transgressions and prepositions as I slid in, under, around, and through the cracks of the judicial system. Still, the system taught me about the kind of sentences I did not want, and I sought a different strategy, this time for more complete paragraphs, and so I left Venice for Hollywood. While living in Laurel Canyon, I studied acting, although most alcoholics like myself are already masters of the craft when they can remember their lines. And after some floundering, I managed to get some acting work, both in theater and film. Around age 30, after a profound aha moment in which it dawned on me that I might have a problem, I decided I had had enough of the slow suicide and made perhaps the most fateful decision of my life up until that point. I resolved that I would allow myself a year without any mind-altering improvisations to my brain. After a year of a clear head, if I still felt the need to phase myself out, I would do so quickly with a gun to my temple. Go out of the universe the way I came in, with a big bang, though admittedly more of a particle blip in the greater scheme of things. That approach seemed more honest and less cumbersome all the way around, as I was not alone in suffering from my addictions to drugs and alcohol and a general annihilation of myself and whoever had the misfortune to ride with me through my lethal maelstrom. I still had family, 2.5 siblings and a mother and a grandmother. Since my parents were well known in Hollywood, whenever my mind-altered behavior got me arrested, which was not infrequent, to my family's embarrassment and dismay, the news media busied itself reporting my vagaries, which made easier and cheaper news than the exposition of social policies that were leading to the corrosion of the country. Though my stepfather and brother had already died, the former of cancer and the latter of a drug overdose, the remaining members of the family deserved a less dramatic journey. Though my motives at the time were less than altruistic, I turned myself in to those trying to eschew the enslavement to chemical escapes in the hope that they would help me achieve a clear-headed year. Surprisingly, after a year of a more or less clear head, I became aware that there was, after all, a woman residing in my body I cared enough about to salvage, always keeping in mind that I could reverse course whenever I chose. The awareness of choice was indeed what kept me off my self-defeating path. My obsessions had robbed me of all the options that I now realized had been open to me all along, and wanting desperately just to be a normal person after some years of studying acting, I returned to school. I also continued to nurture my interest in acting, and I joined a theater group where I did some playwriting as well, and where I had a couple of small productions of some one-act plays I had written. When I finally comprehended that I wasn't the victim of circumstance I imagined myself to be, and that I was responsible for both my own misery and my own happiness, I found I liked both roles in the life when interacting with others, the spooner and the spoonee, the role of the nurturer and the role of the nurtured. I concluded that both roles are intrinsic to the survival in the theater of a balanced life. There are the outliers who have been so damaged by events and circumstances that it renders them incapable of either one or the other or both, so that they can neither nurture nor permit themselves to be nurtured. They were the ones, during my years of quaffing, that fastened themselves to my electromagnetic field and pulled me in and repelled me much of my life, in almost direct correlation with my use of alcohol and drugs. We were each other's attraction and repulsion. In the sobering years that have followed, as the teacher I eventually became after I left Hollywood and the life of the thespian, I've tried to share my experiences of what I've learned, and there are times when it has proved useful to others, to help others along similar paths, which I have found fulfilling and for which I am grateful. At last, I find myself many decades later still alive and contemplating the universe in Mexico with my husband. I was fortunate enough to find a sane, compassionate, and ethical man to marry while still in California. And here in Guanajuato, we share a relatively uneventful life with our 4 pooches, 2 cats, several turtles, and some aquarium fish, which my Harley-riding optometrist husband likes to raise. We both enjoy painting, and I write paragraphs with concrete words and sentences, even short stories and poetry, and I spend an obsessive amount of time taking pictures and working them on the computer as a new vision finds me in the photos I take. Happiness eluded me for so many years that I still feel a little prick like I might jinx it if I say it out loud. So perhaps I should stick to saying, I'm content and joyful a great deal of the time. Joyful just to be alive, to experience the world on its own terms, to see, to feel, to smell, to absorb, to create in keeping with the creation of all things. And when the urge compels my husband and me, to spoon.
Thank you for
Wonderful.
Yes, bravo.
Lovely. Lovely.
Wow, fabulous.
Roger, you're next.
Very good.
Okay, let me hope my internet stays stable long enough to get through this. Am I coming through okay?
Okay. Yep, you're good.
Okay, this is a short story called The Note. She sipped his words slowly. She had to. If she rushed, they would run together. He had obviously taken a long time to put them together. She didn't understand why he didn't just use notepaper. There was a whole pile of it right next to the table, but he didn't. Instead, he created the note, letter by letter, word by word, out of alphabet pasta carefully layered on a base of tomato soup. She was glad he had used tomato soup. It contrasted well with the alphabet pasta. It was also thick enough so that the letters didn't move as easily as they might have had he used, say, chicken broth. Still, she sipped his words slowly, doing her best to prevent them from getting jumbled. The soup itself was not very good. He never took the time to do anything right, and the soup is no exception. She told him 1,000,000 times how easy it is to make real tomato soup. He couldn't be bothered. He just opened a can of crappy Campbell's tomato soup. It looked like congealed red gloop floating on a sea of white gorp. She looked again at the note. The first 3 words were easy to read. They said, "The soup is." But the last 2 made no sense. They said, "pod noise." What does that mean? The soup is pod noise? She was starving. He knew she would be. There was nothing else in the house. So she would eat it, gloop, gorp, and all. At least he made something for her to eat when she got back from work. How touching. Of course, she wasn't really coming back from work. She was really coming back from a night of wild sex with her boss. but obviously she wasn't going to tell him that. So she told him she had to work late, like she told him every Thursday night. To be honest, he was a bit an idiot not to have figured it out. The soup is pod noise. What does that mean? She Googled it on her phone and found that pod noise was the name of a company that made white noise generators. Is that what he wanted, for her to buy a white noise generator? The soup is a white noise generator? She had finished most of the bowl and the first 3 words when Toby waltzed over. Toby was the family cat. Toby also always insisted on sampling whatever you were eating, and tonight was no exception. Toby lapped at the dredges of soup. He wouldn't touch the letters. She didn't blame him. It was just cheap, crappy pasta from the A&P. He wouldn't even spring for decent pasta. She had told him 1,000,000 times, don't buy crappy pasta, get Bertolli's. But he wouldn't listen, just like he wouldn't listen about the soup. Then something odd happened. Toby stiffened, knocked the bowl, and fell over. She looked at Toby in confusion. Why was Toby just lying there? She looked at the soup. In knocking the bowl, Toby had jumbled the remaining letters. The D and N swirled to the back. Then the last words came into focus. It wasn't 2 words. It was 1. It wasn't pod noise. It was poisoned. She replayed the sentence in her mind. Not the soup is pod noise. The soup is, but she never finished. She was distracted by the feeling of her throat tightening and the sensation of falling to the ground.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would just add that that was written at the Roundhouse Writing Group in Guatemala, remotely from Guanajuato, where I'm living, and the writing prompt for the session was, she sipped his words slowly.
Aha, great.
Okay. Yes. I have Umberto and Greg next. You're after that, Peter.
Okay. We're going to read, I think the screen is supposed to shift to me, but it's staying with you, Ken. What do other people see?
I see you.
I see you, Greg.
We see you. We saw you, Greg. Now
Okay.
we see Ken.
You can choose your screen, whether it's speaker or gallery view.
Okay. Well, that
Where's
seems
Humberto?
fun. Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to read 3 poems, and they have as a common theme the reimagining of one's situation in a way that's unrealized or unrealizable, and the idea that that experience is the essence of human yearning and fundamental to the human condition.
Buenas
Roberto?
noches. Vamos a leer 3 poemas. El tema común de los poemas es la reimaginación no realizada, es decir, de una fallida situación o de la situación propia, y esta como una experiencia fundamental del elemento humano, y siempre siendo un anhelo humano esta condición de reimaginar algo que no ha sucedido.
The Romance of Strangers. Dusk, then insulating night. Beyond the windows, ourselves, not countryside, a subtle shift of mood. We seem, the denizens of this train car, to be growing comfortably familiar. Reciprocal inspection, unguarded smiles. Frankly, I think we're fantasizing each about the other's lives and how it comes to be today, this evening, our separate paths converge upon this mobile point. Who's easy, anxious, who yet strives, who's resigned, loved, whose presence is borne grudgingly, who tonight travels out of appetite, routine duty, dull errand, or dire need. Congress only of the eyes, though soon I feel it must bear words that interrogate forthrightly. But we near our destination. Esprit corps yields to separate expectation, the occasion lost. A rakish game played coyly. According to its rules, we part, virgin still, preserve romance.
El romance entre desconocidos, crepúsculo, luego nos aísla la noche. Afuera de las ventanas, nosotros mismos, no el paisaje. Un sutil cambio de atmósfera. Llegamos los pasajeros de este vagón a sentirnos amigables, miradas recíprocas, sonrisas sin reservas. Francamente, pienso, imaginamos la vida de los otros y cómo llega a ser esta tarde en que nuestros caminos se unen en este punto en movimiento. Quien está con calma, preocupado, quien aún espera, quien está resignado, amado, o quien cuya presencia es tolerada, quien esta noche viaja por gusto, por obligación, por un simple mandado o gran necesidad. Reunión de miradas solamente, aunque parece, se aproximan palabras que interrogan directamente, pero llegamos a nuestro destino. El espíritu de grupo cede a expectativas independientes, la ocasión perdida. Un juego permisible conducido con coquetería y de acuerdo a sus reglas, partimos todavía desconocidos, por lo que se preserva el romance.
The second poem appeared in the last issue of La Presa that Lee held up earlier. If, when faced with the choice between science and myth, you choose myth, ignore the properties of beeswax, then you're liable to become a myth yourself. But was it physics that brought Icarus low, or did his conviction fail? A boy of little faith, the leaden habit of the doubt-laden mind. Oops. If not purely an order of matter over mind, then this must be a hybrid world, spirit and matter in eternal, painful transaction. Does the rarity of miracles, their obscure circumstances, never free of skeptics, give us a clue? But perhaps at each critical juncture, we divide into two, become ourselves the duality. Icarus, who soars into the sun, disports himself grandly however he wishes, vanishes forever from earthly view, and his double, who pays with their mundane life. I can't, won't, believe my problem's simply a failure of faith, that when I wish upon a star, my dream fails to come true just because I doubt it will. A vicious circle logically and ethically pernicious, like punishing the blind for not being able to see. Has no one of pure faith ever fallen to an unsought death? How to know? The dead are a taciturn lot. However, the stubbornness of gravity, the refusal of beeswax to hold fast near the sun are irritants that seed the matrix of myth, provoke deadly competition among myths. Were it not for the hard laws of physics, all the various myths might cohabit merrily, strike up the music and dance, the keening of some, not the occasion of others' joyful noise.
Humberto.
Si cuando te encuentras con la opción entre ciencia y mito, eliges mito, ignoras las propiedades de la cera de abeja, entonces corres el riesgo de llegar a ser un mito tú mismo. ¿Pero fue la física que derrotó a Ícaro o fue que falló su convicción? Un niño de poca fe, el hábito pesado de la mente oprimida por dudas. Ups. Sino solamente un orden de materia sobre materia, luego esto debe de ser un mundo híbrido, espíritu y materia en transacción eterna y dolorosa. La rareza de los milagros, sus obscuras circunstancias, nunca sin escépticos, nos dan una pista. Tal vez en cada bifurcación crítica nos dividimos en dos, convirtiéndonos en dualidad. Ícaro, quien planea hacia el sol, se conduce grandiosamente en cualquier forma que desea, desvanece para siempre a la vista terrenal, y su otro, quien paga con su vida mundana. No puedo, no quiero creer que mi problema es simplemente una falta de fe, que cuando deseo frente a una estrella fugaz, mi sueño no se realiza solo porque tengo duda si se cumplirá. Un círculo vicioso, lógica y éticamente pernicioso, como castigar al ciego por no ver. ¿Nunca alguien de fe pura ha caído a una muerte no deseada? ¿Cómo saberlo? Los difuntos son tipos taciturnos. Sin embargo, la obstinación de la gravedad, la rendición de la cera cerca del sol, son irritantes que siembran la matriz del mito, provocan concurrencia mortal entre mitos. Si no existieran las leyes estrictas de la física, todas las variedades de mitos podrían cohabitar alegremente, iniciar la música y bailar, el lamento de algunos, no la celebración de otros.
I once knew a boy, very sure of himself, who claimed that truth was the show playing in the chrome bumper of his old Chevy. He'd sit for hours, entranced by the funhouse swells and bends, flares and glares, sporadic flourishes or frenetic stabs of his pencil. He disapproved of regular syntax, rejected its crude assertiveness. I'd sit beside him, try to fathom the rust-pocked phantasmagoria, looked to the poem growing in his lap for clues. But for me, what was true was him, his lank, hairy thighs through the rips in his jeans. His trances occasioned my own. What stopped me slipping a finger through, sampling the truth there, was different from what stopped him slipping through the chrome.
En el pasado conocí a un muchacho muy seguro de sí mismo, quien proclamaba que la verdad era la representación que se reflejaba en la defensa cromada de su viejo Chevy. Se sentaba por horas fascinado por esta casa de risa, sus agrandamientos y curvaturas, destellos y resplandores, esporádicos garabatos o puñaladas frenéticas de su lápiz. Desaprobaba la sintaxis normal, rechazaba su cruda asertividad. Me sentaba al lado de él, intentaba descifrar lo fantasmagórico entre las manchas de oxidación, buscaba indicios en el poema desarrollándose en su regazo. Pero para mí, la verdad era él, sus esbeltos muslos visibles a través de las rupturas de su pantalón, sus trances ocasionaban los míos. Lo que me detuvo de introducir un dedo para probar la verdad ahí fue diferente de lo que lo detuvo a él de introducirse a través del cromo.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Very nice.
And Umberto. Okay, Peter, you're next.
Okay, can you hear me?
Hmm?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, yeah, I'm Peter Newman. It's great to see everybody. By the way, this is just wonderful. As Lee said the other day, it's like we all have, like we're all Aladdin with a magic lamp. We just have to rub it and bingo, look what's happening. It's fabulous. So I'm currently in Toronto, and I've been coming to Guanajuato for 45 years. I'm not sure when we can get back. We're still hoping that we'll get back this winter. And what I'm going to read is part of a memoir that I'm writing. It's a true story. It's about friendship, my long friendship with a colleague named Paul, who had been vital to us, the success of a project that I began many years ago that was very close to my heart, called the Canada Dominica Outreach Program. And years after my first stint as a volunteer doctor in Dominica, I had started.
Yes, I see you. You get up, you get down, the cat walks by, you go get a cigarette, you come back.
What?
No.
Where's that?
Well,
coming
if you go
Manuela?
up to the top and you hit the button that says gallery, you can see everybody except me.
Manuela, whoever's talking should mute.
Yeah, you just put your cursor up at the top and right-hand corner and it says gallery view.
Host can mute everybody.
Oh,
The host can mute everybody except the speaker if you want.
oh wait, they're
Okay,
talking.
I'll continue. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
So it's about a friendship, a very long friendship.
Anyway, your brother looks pretty good. Yeah, that cigarette,
The gallery.
Host, please mute.
what's the deal?
The host needs to take control here.
Host, take
I can't believe
control.
you're smoking.
What is that?
Well, it's like time you don't.
The host needs to take control and mute.
Especially
Everyone.
since you
Okay, can you hear me now? Just, can you raise your hands if, because I can't hear you, just raise your hands if you can hear me. Okay, great. I felt like we were in the middle of a soap opera there. I don't know what was happening. Okay, so anyway, the young Canadian doctors who I sent to Dominica, which is a very small island in the Caribbean, the second poorest country in the Western Hemisphere after Haiti, they would help the local doctors with their workloads. And in return, the local doctors, especially my dear friend Paul, would provide the residents with supervision and teaching. But he did much more. He made a lot of very strong personal connections. He took these residents on outdoor outings with his family and helped integrate them into the local culture. And that's the kind of friend he is. And my piece is called Locked In, which is a rather more, it's a rather different kind of being locked in than what we're experiencing right now. Locked in. You are completely paralyzed. You can't move your facial muscles, your arms or your legs. Your limbs are useless, floppy appendages. You're unable to sit up or roll over. You lie in bed flaccid and helpless. Your vocal cords are paralyzed too. You can't speak. And no matter how much you want to smile or frown or show any emotion, your face remains an expressionless mask. But mentally, you remain fully yourself. You think and feel as you always have. Your mind is normal, but trapped in a useless, immobile body. This nightmare is called the locked-in syndrome. It results from damage to the brainstem, the vital area of the base of the brain that connects to the spinal cord. And patients who are locked in are quadriplegic, totally paralyzed except for their eye muscles. They can see and hear, they're conscious, they're alert, they think normally, but they can communicate only with blinking or moving their eyes. So how do you connect with a locked-in loved one? I needed to figure it out when the patient was my longtime friend, Paul. Paul was a general practitioner in Dominica. As a GP, he'd been working long hours, the very definition of a going concern. He was also the national epidemiologist. He'd also taken on modernizing the country's information system for health. He was immersed in his medical practice, house calls, a busy family life with 4 children, and now creating his country's first electronic medical records. I'm up to my nose in work, he said, like you. It was a bond we shared, coping with medical practice and administration, the relentless demands. How could he, of all people, be locked in? For 25 years, I've been coming back here as a volunteer. Initially, I felt conspicuous, a white Canadian, no way around it. I tried to become less of an alien, but I was more nervous when put in the spotlight. I was giving a presentation to the doctors and nurses at the main hospital and worried they would find my talk irrelevant to local conditions. Accompanied by Paul, I walked into the lecture hall and scanned the people waiting. Their faces were expectant, alert. I felt my heart beating. Paul introduced me, told the story of my involvement with the little country, and ended up by saying, he's an honorary Dominican. People's faces relaxed into smiles. They applauded. The tension in the room vanished. I couldn't control my own grin. Honorary Dominican, not a stranger now. In 2016, Paul was appointed by the government as special advisor on health to the cabinet, and his new duties included overseeing the construction of a new hospital. His workload, he told me, was now beyond just up to my nose. Yet, less than a year later, the indefatigable Paul locked in. I had trouble picturing him stock still. It was a brain cancer, glioblastoma multiforme, growing in his brainstem, a dreadful place to have a tumor. Neither surgery nor radiation could improve the quality of his life or prolong it. Paul decided the tumor would be left to grow. The treatment would be supportive just to keep him comfortable as possible until the inevitable end. January 2017, 2 months after Paul became locked in, his oldest son, Anthony, lost both his legs in a motorcycle accident. Anthony was stuck in one bedroom, Paul in another. I called Paul's wife, Hazel, to tell her of my arrival date. Better come sooner, she said. Paul's going downhill. I hunched over the phone. He can't swallow now. He's getting aspiration and lung infections. Damn, I'm sorry. How's he mentally? Mentally, he's all there, but he's depressed as hell. It'll cheer him to see you. Seeing Paul brought butterflies into my throat of excitement and foreboding too. I tried to conjure up the one-way communication to come. For how long would I be able to sustain talking to him rather than with him? 10 days later, an island hopper propeller plane has brought me on the last leg of the journey to Dominica. I knock on Paul's door. It's opened by a woman in a crisp nurse's uniform. I introduce myself. Miss Frederick, she replies, with the customary formality here between doctors and nurses. I stand at the door, taking in the scene. Paul is lying in a full hospital bed. He's been placed on his side, facing the window, his back to me. He's completely limp. His once muscular thighs and calves are skinny and atrophied. His legs, bent at the hips and knees, show a glimpse of diaper. I walk around to the far side of the bed to see his face. He looks at me without expression. The facial paralysis makes his face round and smooth and his eyes wide. In his nose, there's a feeding tube, and Miss Frederick puts a pain medication in it. Below his Adam's apple, a tracheostomy tube protrudes through a small circular opening in his neck, and he's breathing through this tube. I start talking. I tell stories from our shared past. His face is a mask, but he can reply to my questions with blinking. Opening his eyes means yes, closing them is no. It makes a huge difference, this little response to my one-way talk. I reminisce aloud about talks we've had over the years, and I read to him medical articles that would interest him and some stories I've written. And I decide to try to cheer him up. Paul, that wife Hazel of yours, she's wonderful. She's so caring and organized and competent. She's such a brick. I think you should keep her. Paul, your facial paralysis has smoothed out all the wrinkles you're supposed to have at your age. The paralysis actually makes your face look younger. You look great, like you've had cosmetic Botox. When I joke, a little corner of his face moves faintly. It's a muscle that makes the right corner of his mouth twinge ever so slightly. Miss Frederick is watching. That's a smile, she says. Paul, do you remember when you introduced me to the audience? He stares at the ceiling. I put my hand on his. You went on about my history here and called me an honorary Dominican. I was touched by that. It meant a lot to me. Paul blinks, remembering. I'll never forget it, Paul. He stares unmoving at the ceiling. The air conditioner gives a low hum. You've helped make this white foreigner belong. Every time I come back here, I feel like I've been adopted into a big family. A lot of that is because of you. I think I see a little pull at the corner of his mouth. Yes, there it is, that minute smile. You know, Paul, when you said honorary Dominican, it kind of choked me up. I gave his forearm a squeeze and his eyes glisten. You're a true friend, and we can still connect. He blinks. A moment later, blinks twice. Paul died peacefully shortly after. He was 58. That's all.
That was,
Oh,
thank you so much.
oh.
True story.
Wonderful story.
Thank you for sharing that.
That was a really wonderful piece, Peter. That was just great.
Thank you. Well, hang in. In about 45 years, the memoir will be out.
Keep it up.
So soon.
Right. Right on.
Okay, Ken, why don't you actually unmute yourself because you have to introduce the next speaker. I don't know who the next speaker is.
Can't hear you, Ken.
Can't hear you. Ken, you have to unmute yourself.
And you're muted.
I'll go
muted.
do that, but I think he wants to say the next speaker is Diane Romaine. The
Oh,
next
good.
read.
Actually,
Okay, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. Very happy to be here. I am in Guanajuato, but I don't really feel completely in Guanajuato. I think I'm in Toronto and where various other places. Seattle, I don't know, California. Anyway, it's fun to be with you all tonight. I was really looking forward to it, and it's really lovely. Thank you. This is I've been for the last week or so doing these write-ins with the Writers League of Texas. And what you do is you just have a little Zoom meeting for 5 minutes. Then you go and write at your own pace for 3 hours. And then you come back and have another Zoom meeting. And just a very brief check-in, and that's it. And they're 2 days a week during November. It's part of the support for the novel writing month of November, which I'm not trying to do, but what I am trying to do is speed up my writing. So I write 6 short, very quick writes, about 1,000 words each in the 3 hours to try to move along with my next novel. So they're rough, obviously, because they're very quick. This is one that I've worked with just a little bit. I don't know yet exactly where it will go in the novel and what else I will put in it, but I think you'll get something out of it as it is. It's called, for now, this little section of the novel, Mommy's Rules, Don't Be Sneaky. Oh, by the way, we are in the middle of a soap opera here in Guanajuato. There is a company in town, and they're filming a telenovela, which is set here in Guanajuato. Okay, so here we go. Oh, I should say that the novel is about a woman who's around 28 and her daughter who's around 8. They live in Guanajuato. The mother is not fluent in Spanish. The daughter is. This is the daughter. I've got to talk this over with someone, and I can't talk it over with Tia Armando. I've got to bounce, as Mommy says, with you, Kitty. You know about Mommy's journal and the missing pages I found? I didn't find the pages. I found the journal, but I noticed the pages were missing. Well, I go back into Mommy's room whenever she's locked in the bathroom, and I read little bits of the journal. But I haven't found any clues about what's wrong with me. Anything relevant, as Mommy might say. I know I shouldn't be reading Mommy's journals. It's not something Mommy would want, or she would have already shared them with me. But I can't help myself. Maybe that's what's wrong with me, that I sneak around. It's not good to be a sneak or a snitch, neither one. 2 of Mommy's many rules. Mommy never sneaks. Sometimes I think she should. She's really out there, Tia Armando says, saying whatever comes to mind, as if people don't understand what she's saying. I think she's too used to being around people who don't understand what she's saying. She only speaks English. Anyway, I found things from when Mommy was little, like me. She wrote about a boy next door and lemonade. Mommy had made lemonade to sell on the sidewalk by their house, and the boy next door bought some. There were lots of kids playing in the street, but he was the only one who bought any. Or rather, he was the only one who drank what he bought. The other kids bought some, but then they just laughed. And he didn't. He drank all of his. And then Mommy tasted some and was embarrassed because she had used way too much sugar. Now, she doesn't put enough sugar, I can tell you that. You should see the looks on the kids' faces when they drink her agua de Jamaica. I don't mind it so much, but I'm used to it. Mommy has a real thing about sugar. She watches me like a hawk. Hawks have very good eyesight. I know that from the blue planet that Tio Armando lets me watch at his house. I've learned so much about animals that way. Anyway, I wanted to talk with you about a boy in my class, Miguelito. He told me he doesn't live with his father. He had lived with his father for a while, but then his father got a new wife and didn't want Miguelito to live with them. I wondered if that's it. Is that why I don't live with my father? Because he got a new wife? He must have gotten one right away because I never saw him even once. And Mommy never mentions him, not even in her journals. I think Mommy doesn't want me to know him. He must have done things she doesn't like, broken her rules. Maybe he's sneaky. And that's why I'm sneaky. They say you get things from your parents. I'm not sure what I got from Mommy. Not her height, unless I'm going to sprout up all of a sudden. But Mommy didn't sprout. She was already the tallest in her class when she was a little girl. But I'm the shortest in my class. So what do you think, Kitty? Will Mommy send me away when she finds out that I'm sneaky, like Daddy? I know she'd never send me away for being short. That's one of Mommy's rules. You don't reject people because of how they look. They can be black, brown, white, cream, yellow, pink, or green. It doesn't matter. It's how they act. Grampy must have done something awful. Mommy never mentions him either. Maybe he's sneaky. Maybe that's where I got being sneaky. And it's not my father after all. Then what did I get from him? Something else that will make Mommy send me away if she finds out. I do know I won't let Mommy find out I'm sneaky. That would be the end of my world. I'd have to go away from you, Kitty. Sometimes they're confusing, Mommy's rules. I have to pay strict attention. I don't want to break one accidentally, but I'm just a kid. I can't figure them all out for myself. Mommy says everyone should have a second chance. That's one of her rules. So I don't worry too much. There's no way I'd break a rule more than once if Mommy caught me. But until then, I keep breaking her rule about sneaking almost every day.
Very good. Good to see you.
Good to
Lovely,
see you.
lovely.
Yeah, lovely and wonderfully presented.
Oh, thank you.
We were really inside that girl's head.
Oh, good. I hope so.
Is there anyone else that would like to read that we've missed? Evidently not. So that's the end of this Zoom.
Thanks so much
Thank you all for coming.
Thank
Ed
you
and
all.
to
Hello,
Sam.
everybody. Thank you. It's been wonderful to see you all.
Yes.
Great, great to hear you all those who read. I just loved it. Thank you. I feel like I'm back in Guanajuato.
Oh, thank
Well,
you.
you should be back here. It's lovely here.
We miss you.
Well, I miss everybody.
Yeah, it's hard,
Yeah.
Hey,
but this helps. This helps.
Yeah.
Really good.
sorry to interrupt.
That's nice.
I just wanted to remind the people in Guanajuato that Manuela Theus has an exhibit at the Foro Cultural 81.
Oh, wonderful.
And another one at Jean Byron.
Sorry?
And,
Manuela, what did you say?
oh, I have another one at Jean Byron also.
Oh, okay, well,
Wow.
the Foro exhibit.
How can we see it?
But the one at Foro is very nice and very formal, and the way they hanged it was beautiful.
Oh, I wish I could.
How can we see the work?
Yeah.
Post pictures of it, please.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, that's a good idea.
We made little videos like virtual. I can put those.
okay, so I'm going to stop recording right now, guys. And
Okay.
it was wonderful having all of you and an extraordinary evening. And it's just amazing. And
Well,
so
thank you, Greg and
Thank
Ken.
you.
Reverend
Thank
Stock,
you
for
very, very
organizing.
much.
Thank you so much.
Love seeing everybody. It's so fun.
yes,
Yeah, it's wonderful to see everyone and to
Yeah,
listen.
God for
All the
everybody.
good work. Yeah.
I miss everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.